In part 7 of this tutorial series, we will be tweaking the look of our game and build our first mini golf course, which will act as level 1. So before we get into setting up our levels, we'll need to just, it would be nice to address the lighting setup, just so, you know, things just look nicer as we're working with it. So the settings that I've found work nicely is a rotation of 120 and 270, intensity of 0.9, with soft shadows that are not too strong. About something like that, maybe 0.7 on the shadows. And then in our window rendering lighting settings, an intensity multiplier of 0.9. And from there, we can create new materials for our pieces. So let's create a new material and call it grass material, and another one, sorry, not C#, material called wall material. So in our scene, we can go to our course and we can drag our grass material on, and we can make it some kind of shade of green, and then drag our wall material on. There we go. Use like some kind of shade of red, and we also in our lighting rendering light settings, we want to auto generate light. And this will take a little bit of time, but it will get a lot brighter, as you can see. And in fact, let's change this name from plain to out of bounds. And we can create a material for that. And let's just call that backdrop material. We can drag that on, and I kind of like a sort of like a grayish kind of brown. Something like that is fine. And then we can go ahead and apply these grass materials to our objects in here. And our wall materials as well. And you can also do it to our flag. And just looking at our game tab, we can kind of play around with these colors now to something. Oh, if it will let me. Come on. Okay. Usually play with this viewing in game. Yep. Actually, I'm kind of happy. I'm actually quite happy with that. Maybe you can set this to HSV, so you can play, with the hue saturation. So I might bump up that saturation a bit, not too much. Maybe make it a little bit lighter. You can make it more yellow. Well, you can make it blue if you wanted. You can make it whatever color you want. I'm just going to go with this kind of green. As for the wall material, I'm going to go with something not as... Okay, come on. Why is this doing this to me? Okay. So for saturation, I'll do something like that. Yeah. I'm pretty happy with that. And then I might change my backdrop again. Something a bit lighter. Yeah. I'm happy with that. You can set it to whatever color you want. That's all fine. Now, now that we're happy with that, for our prefabs, let's go in and drag these over our prefab. So whole square, we've got our, just rename this, our end, our gap, straight, and also our whole trigger. That can be updated as well. I'm pretty happy with that, the way it all looks. Let's save that. And now we can start working on our level design for our first level. For our first level, we want to start off with something very simple that we can introduce the player to. Now you can feel free to do whatever kind of level design you want. This is just going to be an example of what you could do, and I'm just going to give you some ideas of how you can apply assets from the nature pack into the golf course, and there are so many more ways that you could actually utilize these assets, so you can get very creative with that. But for this one, it's going to be quite simple. We're just going to start off just with this straight piece, and then move our whole trigger. and then we're going to come up with a curved corner piece like this. I'm just holding down Control while I rotate. Hit W and vertex snapping. And each time we bring one of these new ones in, we can apply our custom materials and then turn this into a prefab, original prefab. And so then what I wanted to do was then have a hill round, materials, now something to just be aware of with the vertex snapping is there seems to be a bit of a bug where it doesn't work sometimes. You'll be trying to snap it and it won't go in the right place. So if you ever have that issue, 2 ways I've noticed fixes it is that if you just delete the piece and replace it, get a new one, that sometimes fixes it, or using this move, rotate, or scale, it's like a multi-tool. And if you try using vertex snapping with the multi-tool, I'm pretty sure it works every single time, and you can rotate as well. So yeah, it's a little bit busy and a bit messy, but you know, it's not too bad. And then I'll just get rid of this piece here, and then we'll have, sorry, I'm just so used to using the regular tools. That, and then our end piece here. So it's basically enough distance for the player to get their ball to about here, but they shouldn't be able. The point of this hump is that even at the maximum speed, they won't be able to get it into the hole in one shot, just because of this bump, which means that they will need to then do a second shot. But if they do it too hard, because they'll want to putt the ball quite hard to be able to get it over the bump, but if they putt it too hard, it can end up going flying right over the top. So that's like a bit of a little bit of a learning curve there. And just so that they can't just run the ball along the side and make it go all the way around, we're gonna use something from the nature pack here for that. So in the nature pack, because we'll be using these you know, in a very kind of bespoke way, we're not going to bother, unless you're planning on using a particular one very often. I'm not going to bother creating prefabs for each of these, because each one is going to be differently scaled, you know, and we're probably not going to use the same piece twice. So if you plan on using all these pieces regularly over and over again, and you want to be able to make changes to them and to apply across all the scenes, and you're working with lots of scenes, then you know it might be worth it. Just noticing our snap doesn't look very good there, so I might just try and re-snap that, and it looks a little better. And then we'll have to re-snap this here. Sometimes you can notice if the seam doesn't look too good, the snapping, you can just re-snap it. So for this, what I wanted to do was take a fence. You can take a fence object, or what's kind of cool, I think, is where is it? I've just scrolled over it. Oh, okay. I think it's the path of wood. I think that's the one yeah, the path of wood, pretty sure. Yeah, that's the one I wanted. So path of wood. And for this, you know, we can just add a box collider. And that's going to be good enough. And what I did is place this like this. And then just scale it down quite a bit. Move it off to the side like that. Might even scale it a bit smaller. Bring it up a bit. Let's see, just about here. And then Control D, duplicate that. And then bring this here. So now we've got a bit of a barrier, so you have to kind of get the ball between. And I just think these look a little bit kind of more quirky than the fences in this situation. But right now it's a little bit too easy for the player to get the ball between. So what we're going to do is we're going to force them, if they want to get it through in one shot, then they're going to have to pull off a rebound. So we're gonna take a rock, and we can look at it from above if we really want to be specific with our angles, so we can see, okay, this rock can be kind of centered, and then I'll bring the rock about here. Just make sure that's in the ground. Yep. And then we just want to add a mesh collider to that rock. And me personally, I'm not that much of a fan of the color of that, the grass on these rocks. So I'm going to create a new material, and I'm just going to call this grass 2 material, like that. Look at it in our game view, and I prefer using a darker kind of green, you know, something like that. Maybe more towards the blue, or as long as it's like kind of quite different from the grass underneath it, I'm kind of happy with that. It's like a dark kind of grass, save that. And then what we can do, so we know our ball start position should be, I want our ball start position to be kind of in the center of these. And we know that the player is going to want to send their ball this way, about here, and bounce it around, and then send it back here and bounce it around. So just to make it a little bit more difficult, I'm going to include a couple trees, just to kind of block the path a bit. So perhaps we can use this tree, and we could also use maybe this one, and we'll just scale these down a bit. Yep. So maybe we could bring one about here, and one about here. just so the player can't just shoot their ball right past the rock. And in terms of how it looks, I might bring this one a little bit closer so we can see there's a gap around there more clearly. And I might also create a new material for our trees. Tree material. Now we can play with this. Yeah, I actually kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah, I like the lighter kind of, not too saturated, but yeah, that's fine. Pretty happy with that. And we just need to make sure we have mesh colliders on both of these and hit save on that. And I'm pretty happy with how that looks. So if we just want to test it, we can just go back to our menu, hit play, and just add just blank and click start. Now we can see if we run into that, we just bounce off it. Whoop. So the great thing about the little line director here is that even if our ball is hidden, we can still kind of see generally where it is. If you were to get more advanced, you could write a shader, a special shader for the ball material that would let you see it through objects if it's behind other objects, or you could have some kind of ray cast from the camera to the ball, and if that ray cast hits any objects, we make those objects translucent. So here we can see that working. We bounce off the rock. We can bounce off the wall. Let's try and thread it through. Oh, okay. It seems. Yes. It seems we forgot to add mesh colliders. I'm just going to add mesh colliders now. Just for the playtesting. Obviously, once I stop playing, it'll be reverted and I'll have to reapply it. But just for now, yep. So you can see if I apply full power over this, oh, that nearly fell out of the level. If I do it this way, yeah, there we go. Goes out, and then just a little putt, just like that. Okay, great. So let's just fix that in our level 1. Let's go back and add those mesh colliders. And in our prefabs, let's overwrite that. So I don't think we had one for hill round yet, so that'll be an original prefab now. And then our round corner B, we will overwrite that. And we can check here, they all have mesh colliders on them. So that's pretty simple for the first level. When we don't have to worry about this line renderer sitting out there. And in terms of main camera, we can move our game across here and move our camera just in a way that really kind of frames it in the way we want it. Maybe make it a bit bigger, really make use of the space. Ooh. Okay, I'm pretty happy. So close that. Pretty happy with the way that's framed. Oh, there we go. It's fixed itself now. Yeah. Okay. In terms of the player name label, save that. Save project, and I'll just give it one more quick test. Let's see if I can do it. Oh. You can play around with the positions of all these things. See, I'd be surprised if you could finish this in 2 parts. Oh, that was close. Yeah, it'd be nice to have a little shift key or something to speed up that process. I love the way it spins around in the hole. Great. All right, so that's level 1 done.